Hello and welcome back to Genie and a podcast dedicated to Christina Aguilera and connecting fighters through her music and everything that she has inspired in them. Today we have a really exciting guest. He's back from season 1. It's my dear friend Steve, out from prison.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
And we haven't had you on for a while. You've been missing in action, but now we're in season 2.
Yeah, my fighter card was revoked,
Yes, it's
but
straight to jail.
I appreciate a chance for me to redeem myself.
And I feel like you're like well versed with Stripped, right? Like that's the big one that most people are.
That's my album. True, yes.
Okay, so you'll be good. Um, Season 2 is all about Stripped, as we said, and I'll pepper in some episodes about other albums or whatever's going on current day. This episode, we're going to be talking about the sexual liberation of Stripped and her image.
Yes.
I guess first we can go by setting the scene. But in the early 2000s was a very nasty time for women in general, but also in pop, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. Like just thinking about image, their ages, right?
Hmm.
Like when we think of a fat at the time, what is fat now and what fat was back then?
Right.
Horrible, horrible stuff. Slut shaming left and right.
Totally. And they had to do like a balancing act between like being sexual, but also still having that like girl next door image. And somebody who like mastered that was probably Britney. And that's probably why
Definitely.
Christina, she was less willing to play that game. So that's why, she was always kind of like the sluttier one or like the bitchier one.
I remember thinking that Christina has always been more sexual because of her lyrics in Coming Over when she's like, sexually.
Right. But even like in Baby One More Time, it's hit her baby one more time, but also, which by the way, I sent him a TikTok about Max Martin wrote that. And of course, like that was back whenever he was like less well versed in English. So we have to thank his like language barrier for those lyrics.
I mean, it worked.
It did. What was the other one? I want
Uh,
it that way. That was,
yeah,
yes. It makes sense because they don't make sense, but it works in like the melody.
yes.
And so like it was a balancing act and like to be slutty or to be sexual but not be a slut, to appear wholesome so that there can like it's marketing, like to be accepted by the masses. And so Christina was less willing to play that game. And with Stripped, she was willing to like shed that whole like layer of that facade that they were making her put on for debut. I feel like we got glimpses of it because like in debut, like whenever she got to like take a little bit more creative freedom, with like come on over, she was playing with her hair a lot and all the extensions, but also she was. But like whenever you can see like her image in the beginning, like with Genie, it was like, longer skirts and like maybe a little bit of midriff, but they were like still wholesome outfits.
It was the
And then,
midriff, the time of the midriff, I think, at the time,
right?
because even Britney and Oops, which I guess like is similar time to this, but both of
Yeah.
them like would tend to like show stomach, but that's it, right? And still have this whole I'm a virgin like type of idea. Play like the good
Mhm.
girl part, but also like act dirty.
Right. That balancing act. And it was weird that Christina was always the more like sluttier one to the public because, Brittany also, with her Schoolgirl Gone Bad first single, if anything, Christina was like more wholesome because, she was in her baggy jeans.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, she was like fully covered and maybe like rub me the right way was not the
Her,
best
well,
lyrics for.
which could be meant like emotionally, but also
Yes.
her look and Genie is now back in style. You
That's
see people walk around wearing it, but yeah, I think like that's also it always felt creepy. Like sometimes like the attention that Britney gets, right? Because
mhm,
like there's the whole innocent act and like the schoolgirl type.
right.
Where with Christina, she feels more whole in a way, like more formed, you know?
Right. Like that's like a part of her personality.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. And it's sold with confidence, I think, as well.
Right.
Like nobody's
And
claiming
even,
that she's stupid. You know what I mean? While like there's the idea that Britney's stupid. Like I don't believe it, but like that was kind of like the image, right? Like, oh, a
oh,
dumb
totally.
blonde, which I feel like Christina never played. even in her like first album. Like
Oh yeah,
she was not into that.
totally. And so, well, like even with Britney, like she was the first one to come out with sexual. I don't know. I feel like even she wore the assless chaps. I totally forgot about that. But in in Slave for You, she's wearing assless chaps.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It was too dark.
it was very dark.
I
But we're here for Christina.
Yes. I think like the
Uh,
comparisons are a must. I know you made an episode about it, and it's hard
yeah,
because they were the two leads at the time. And when we're
right.
talking about the pop scene, you have to mention both. And there
Yeah.
was a lot of
I guess we can also pepper in, especially since she's coming out with new music, Jessica, Jessica Simpson.
poor Jessica. It's so funny
Yeah,
because
because
like she
they
doesn't. She's
were.
like the second tier.
Is it second?
Oh my God. I'm a Jessica stan, as everybody knows already. So
I appreciate her. I actually like listened to her audiobook and it was really good. I didn't realize that she's also going through a divorce. Like, so she's coming out with new music, but also going through a divorce. It's a big year for her.
uh, maybe that's where the music is coming from. They're like,
I
this
wish
is
her the
like
best.
just a new Jessica, right? So maybe she's like doing the Taylor
Yeah,
Swift route of talking about her life. When you think
right?
about it too, think about how old all of them were. I don't remember exactly how old Christina was, but they all started before they were 18 and they were really young. So even thinking about what image you're trying to put forward, like we didn't know who we are
Hmm.
at around that age. So even the image that Christina put in Stripped, it's like, is that really who she is? It's who she was at the time, but also she's not a grown up really yet. Her brain isn't fully formed, so these
True.
ideas, the ideas that we have about her at such a young age, right? Because I'm thinking also like in the
Right.
choices in fashion, the black scent that she used a few times, and it was the time. At the time, like that was everybody did that, right? Um,
Yeah.
but you think about it and you're like, oh, you were very young, you know? At the same time, very confident. So that is kind of something to admire. Like,
Yeah, totally. And but then so like we get into Lady Marmalade, and that's whenever she's like a peak of that sexual what's about to come. But of course, everybody was shocked whenever she came out with Dirty. Do you remember the backlash, like in the media for like her being like the biggest hoe?
I do not because I did not have access to that media. But I remember I was
Oh, in
shocked
prison
at
again?
thinking I wasn't allowed to watch it. So watching it was in secret.
Exactly. But here in America, she was heavily, it was censored, I believe. They even had to change like pieces of the music videos. What I found out, I totally forgot that like there was a point where like she was being spanked and she was on the ground and she was like writhing around on a man, like one of the dancers. But she really owned that sexuality, and that's what I loved. She was at the forefront of that whole like posse of people that were just out partying, having a good time. Because she's come with this album, but she's like 21 now. She's a grown woman, kind of.
Yeah, we need that back. We need
Yeah,
like
so she's
a
like a grown
party
woman.
down Christina.
Yeah,
She needs some party anthems. New
and of course,
party
like
anthems, I mean.
of legal age to drink.
Yes.
And so, of course, like if I was a celebrity, I would totally end up like being a hoe.
Trust me, like the whole like idea of the trio at the time and every party, I would totally do that too. Like I understand, like
Right?
I was a hoe without the celebrity aspect. So add some free stuff, I'm in. So I completely understand. And it's
That's
really the Dirty video set the scene of what a party is like for a young person. I really thought going to the bar and going to a club and partying was all sweaty, naked people, which is kind of, yes, but not exclusively.
something.
And I really kind of wanted to experience that, to be honest. It made it seem like so much fun. And it's disappointing when reality doesn't match up to the Dirty video. And she
I think
danced.
it's for the best.
And we're not
But no, yeah,
specifically talking about Dirty, but she like danced in that video.
she totally did, and I feel like she also doesn't get enough credit for the dancing and also singing at the same time. And but like
She
she
did.
came out with that song, and she was so inspired. She had heard "Let's Get Dirty" by Redman, and she really liked that beat. So she went to Rockwilder. Pretty much, they just made a spin-off, like a more pop version of Let's Get Dirty, and that's why Redman is featured on it. And that's why it's like a bit more hip hop. It's a little bit harder, and there's like an industrial kind of like sound to it.
Yeah, I
But
can hear
yes,
that.
it's so much more hard for like a pop star.
And I think it's a good single to
Mhm.
use to kind of like introduce the album in a way,
Oh yeah, totally. It was
or
shocking.
introduce the new Christina, right? If like the first time we're introduced to
Yes.
her is through like Reflection, right?
Mhm.
There's more like a wholesome Disney like energy to
Right.
Reflection, but then here Dirty, like, okay, I'm 21 now, I'm gonna party, and I still give you vocals. And I think like that's a good introduction to this album. It's like this is my new image, this is who I am.
Yes. So I remember because this is back when like radio was huge, and there was no streaming, so like we had to like wait for an album to be released or a single to be released on a specific day. But I feel like the internet was already becoming like a bigger thing, and so like Christina had a specific date, and I forgot like how I found out about it, because like the internet was still like in its infancy for like the masses. And but I just remember like her release of the first promo single, which was going to be Dirty. It was set for a date that was coming up, but then it got leaked, I think. And so then it like was had to like force its premiere. And then I think it was like the day like right after that happened, but she came down to do the hosting, not hosting, but the presenting that award with Eminem. It was like a best female or best male act.
Wait, is it the one with the whatever?
No, it's whenever she says, interesting.
Oh, okay.
Eminem. But yes. And so, that was like the first big time, because I could already heard the single a couple of times on the radio, and I was already like intrigued, and it was like such a big statement. And I was like, oh my
Hmm.
God, I love the song. And I remember like trying to find it on like LimeWire or whatever to download it,
That's where I
and
got
then
it.
watching. Yes. And then so like watching her come like descend those steps onto that. And she's just so like strong with her like visuals, with that scarf and her makeup and
Oh my
everything.
God.
And like even her strut to the song, it was just really confident. And like
She
even,
was showing
that's
a lot of skin compared to how much she showed before.
right. It was just oozing confidence. And that's what like, I feel like that clip still like goes, pretty like viral within the fan base from time to time, because it's just so strong. It's such a statement.
Yeah. And you can tell like she's very young then as she's
So young.
introducing herself again.
Yes. And so she faced a lot of backlash for that single and the music video. And I feel like it didn't hit it didn't hit like number one. And a lot of stations probably didn't know what to do with it. But I heard that it was like big in like Europe and like, the UK and everywhere. But here it was just kind of like big for a moment, and then it kind of like fizzled. But it must, I like couldn't even imagine like being like clubbing age and like not hearing that song, because like I want to hear that song current day,
I bet the gay bars were like playing it nonstop.
right?
It was number one in my house.
That's all that matters.
Yes.
So besides that, another like strong and like powerful statement on the album is Get Mine, Get Yours. And this one, I appreciated it. And it's kind of like Euro, what was it, like EDM kind of? What do you think? EDM light? Because it has
Um,
like an electro feel. But
Not strong enough to
this
be
one,
like
like whereas
EDM.
Dirty is like, right.
Had more of
So
a
like Dirty
rawness
is like
to it.
brazen and in your
Yeah.
face. Yes. But this one's kind of like smoother, but it's unapologetic within its being like sex positive. And that's why like that one is such a gem that I feel like people don't
It's going for more
appreciate
sensual
enough.
than
I think it
sexual.
would be really cool for her to bring it back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And it's like just being unapologetic about basically a one night stand. It's just like, let me get mine, get yours, and like no strings attached. And I feel like other than like Madonna and maybe and Janet, we hadn't really
yeah.
heard. We don't hear like a ton of pop stars like talking so freely and openly and unapologetic about their sexuality in that way.
Yes. I feel like now, if you listen to pop now and focus on what's popular, yes, you hear more about like women's pleasure, right, when it comes to sex. But at the
Right.
time in that scene, like it's funny, right? Like even Christina getting hate for it, Madonna got hate for it, Janet, like it's always every star that does it gets backlash. But
Right.
yeah, it felt still fresh at the time, right? To hear it.
Oh yeah, and now it's kind of like everybody.
Yeah, and it was still the sexual theme, right? But it's not as explicit as Dirty.
Right, just like Loving Me for Me is also kind of like that sensual, and that one is confident and sensual, but I would say it's more about self-love.
Yes. Oh, I was gonna say throughout all of this, she focused on giving you vocals because I think that was like part of her
Oh
brand.
yeah.
Sexy vocals, you know, confident.
Oh yeah, because like what would she be if she didn't have those? Like that's the whole point for like her existence is that voice.
Yeah, which I think in thinking of like when people talked about at the time the pop stars, right? Like these pop girlies of the early 2000s, late 90s, there was a lot of focus on like the whole they're manufactured, they don't have like soul, right? Like it's just trash, like it's not good music, it's not real music, all that bullshit that would be said back then. And I feel like with Christina, there was like a not really a response to the critics, but more of like I'll prove you wrong in a way, right? Because she is, after all, a singer, not just a pop star. And I feel like she loves showing that. Like that's why a lot of her music focus on showing her belting and giving us her vocals. It's like, don't forget, yes, I look sexy, but I still can sing.
Oh yeah, that was the whole like thing. It's like being a dynamic person and not just being like just sex. It's just like there's a personality there. She has like a whole rounded self, and that was kind of like what you said, just like where it was kind of like a double standard because like men could easily like rap or write and sing about sex, whereas she was kind of like this maybe not intentionally like would you say capital letters feminist. She was just trying to be herself, but also a strong woman. And would you call her a feminist?
100%, hands down.
Oh, okay, good. Well, it definitely has to, it makes sense because she
Did we
was
forget
raised with
about
like
Can't
such a
Hold Us
strong
Down?
woman. Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, because with Can't Hold Us Down, it goes into the sexuality, but also it was in directly in reference to Eminem and just how like, sex was being used against her, because she was already kind of like placed as like the sluttier one with her and against Britney. And so, like, Eminem being displeased with something that Christina said, he took it upon himself to, like, write more, like, gross stuff about her. And so, Can't Hold Us Down is an indirect kind of, like, response to that. And so, it's not just, like, not directly addressing him, but more so, like, the general mood of, like, a woman isn't allowed to, like, be as sexual or as expressive as a man, and like why are these double standards, like why do they exist? Like a woman can do just as much as a man.
Yes. And I forgot what I was going to say. You distracted me with Eminem because Eminem gets to like talk about murdering women and that's okay and not sus at all. But God forbid, Christina talks about touching herself.
Oh yes, so
But yes,
like
she
gross
is.
double standard.
Yes. And I do believe that she is. Like maybe it's not the message in every song she sings about
Mhm.
empowerment, but she definitely is a capital feminist, as you said, because just with anthems like Can't Hold Us Down in this album. But she seems like she's taken a page out of like the Spice Girls girl power, right?
Oh yeah.
Idea of and just presenting herself as like strong, right? And like
Mhm.
wanting going after what she wants, right? Like the get mine, get yours type of idea, right? Like being who you are, having fun, getting
Mhm.
dirty, fighting back, that kind of energy.
Right, and the Can't Hold Us Down is also kind of like in that sexual liberation, just because like she is owning that piece of it, but also in the other songs. But this one, she's fighting back. It's like, why can't I do this? Everybody else does it. So it was kind of like a nice package because like she is sexy, but she's also questioning why she can't because it was kind of like an answer. Whereas where we first got Dirty, it was kind of like the shock in the face, kind of like, it caused the uproar that it needed to get a conversation going. And whenever she was labeled the slut, of course, we'll talk about Beautiful in another one. And that was kind of like the call to that. But eventually, the last single, I believe, what was it? Because it was Fighter, then Can't Hold Us Down, right?
Good
Yeah, I believe
question.
so.
Fighter, Can't Hold Us
And
Down,
then,
The Voice Within. Which one came first?
oh, I think The Voice Within was the last one. But yeah, all of these are like statements, just like following your true self. And with Can't Hold Us Down, so like we already had Dirty, and this is like, why can't I do this? So she kind of, had this whole, like, it's like well thought out, just like, I'm going to give you Dirty, going to have this uproar. Then I'm going to give you this answer of like, why was this an uproar? Why did it upset you and elicit like these emotions that they did? And why is it okay just for women not to do it, but men can get away with it?
Yes.
So I love that she was calling those like double standards and only being like 21, 22 at the time.
Yes.
And just like Madonna and Janet before her, she was really like blazing a trail for later generations. Like so many people have cited her. So many like current pop girlies have cited her as a reference. And who do you think of like when you think of like new girls who like pay homage to her? Like immediately what I think of right now is Sabrina Carpenter, because like she loves Christina and Christina loves Sabrina. It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
cute to see like them being so supportive.
And she followed a similar track, right? Of being the Disney star. Like, I don't know if she was Disney, but like the young actor,
Like
young
wholesome, yeah.
children's star. And then like she grew up and now she's being more like doing her own thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess she's
Oh,
still kind of like facing that kind of like double standard. Oh, she's 25 years old. So Sabrina
she was
Carpenter
born
is
in the
25 years old.
90s.
Ah, lovely. She's old enough to be that sexual woman now and like express herself freely. And, so like whenever she was on that last tour, she was doing Juno, and she was experiencing that kind of like uproar of like, she would get to the part where like, have you tried this pose or position? And, she would go into different like sexual positions. And then people were like, oh, she's a bad role model. And like, why are you looking to celebrities to be a role model and raise your children? Like, you do that. She's here to entertain and sing, and she's doing a great job.
Yes. If you still hang up on an idea of a role model, you have Jojo Siwa. Okay, like someone completely safe or crazy. But
She's crazy.
but I do feel like she is very like child friendly, like even still.
Or she was.
like
Oh, yeah.
like she
She's
would
trying to
never
like get out of
curse,
that,
but
but
I'm getting that energy. That's
yes.
that's why like when she released her song, like it didn't fit. That's why none of it is working because she's trying to do something that does not fit her. You know.
Right.
Anyways, it's not about her, but yeah. So I could see like the Christina influence with Sabrina.
Yeah.
At first, I thought of Miley Cyrus because since she came after Sabrina, I mean Christina,
Before.
with the whole
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
of having her moment, and at least like someone who can sing.
Oh, yeah. And she definitely had that same trajectory as like Disney into like a star and kind of like having to reclaim those like and reintroduce herself to the world as like an artist.
Yeah, but
Also Demi Lovato, who's kind of also had a weird track record with that, but also
it's
got
hard for me
vocals.
to
She's
keep
got
track of
vocals.
her, to keep track of Demi's
I think she's no longer talking
career.
to aliens.
Okay, that's good. So, did she have a bad girl moment? I can't remember. I'm still
She had a
reeling
couple of
off the
bad
fact that
moments.
her bang was fake. I'm still reeling from the
Her
fact that
what?
her bangs were fake. Her bangs in Camp Rock, because I did love Camp Rock, were fake.
Oh gosh, they were fake.
That's what the bang, like her bangs were so thick, like that fringe like was so, I was like, this is amazing. I wish my hair would do that. And I guess it's like a fake bang, like it's a wig. I don't know. I can't confirm or
Oh,
deny.
that makes sense. Well, she's had and also like a difficult time with being sexual and choosing her pronouns and sticking to them. But also
you
everything's
know
very fluid. Do what you want.
they're discovering them. She's discovering herself in public. I think that's a big thing that younger pop stars face, is that everything is
Right.
like publicized, right? And it wasn't by choice the way social media is right now, where you can control your image that much. It was out of their control in the hands of like, producers and stuff and outside influences. So even your rebellion is broadcasted. And I feel that Christina's rebellion worked in her favor, right? Because she was rebelling against like the good girl image they wanted to give her. Not that she's bad, but she was
Hmm.
rebelling against that kind of like girl next door image.
Manufactured, kind of like false. Yeah.
Yeah, and wanted to like experiment, feel herself, And she did and stripped, and it worked
Hmm.
well for her, right? Because she did like have all these musical influences she wanted to like showcase, wanted to sing, wanted to be sexy,
Yeah,
and it
like,
wasn't
and
so
also be seen as a
overkill.
real artist. Yeah.
Yes. And it wasn't overkill for her. I feel like sometimes when this good girl gone bad, these girls have to like pull back after that period
Mhm.
because they're like, oh, maybe I'm not that bad. Maybe I'm just a little bit bad, not too bad, like to
A little
find their
bad.
balance. And I feel
Right.
like thinking of someone, since I mentioned Miley, like she had so many,
Hmm.
like during the, I know a lot of people love bangers, but she had like so many looks and outfits that she chose at the time that were horrendous. Right, like she made some choices that I don't think she can still stand by. Right, so like seeing Christina's was good. Christina's was more measured, let's say.
Yeah. I think maybe mine was a bit ridiculous, but I think Christina can also say the same about like having ridiculous, some ridiculous outfit. There's this one that she wore where, do you remember that velvet number where it was, like all torn up in pieces and she had like braids in the front, but maybe like a teased out afro kind of situation. I'll
What
send you
was
a
this in
picture.
a
I'll put one on top,
video?
but
Yes.
oh, this is actually before Stripped
um,
came out, and this is when we were seeing because she was getting her piercing. She had her big nose
oh my
piercing with
god.
the big jewelry. It was interesting.
I've
Oh,
sent you like
even
the
with
background. I've sent you the background I made
well,
for her, and
even
people hated that picture.
I need to see this again. You'd have to send it, and I'll put it on top of this.
Oh my god,
Uh,
my little Photoshop
yes,
creative Christina website or whatever
yes,
forum I used to begin. See, I'm a fighter for people who denied me. Once you're a fighter, you're always a fighter.
oh gosh,
I stand
yes.
by that. Goodness.
Well, and one thing that I just remembered is that like even whenever she was coming out and being unapologetic about her like being sexual, there was even that early on when she did the Rolling Stone cover where, she's talking about her piercings. And I remember she talked about how like she wanted to get the piercings because it was kind of like a form of her having autonomy over her body and being able to express herself. And so that's why she got all these piercings. But, everybody was speculating like where, I guess she told people at some point, I have X amount of piercings, and everybody was guessing. And I guess in Rolling Stone, they like drew a diagram and of possible places that she was pierced. Even though she was trying to be unapologetic about it, people are still speculating and kind of like in her business, like mind your own business.
True, I agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, like her rebellion worked out. I At the time I really thought she was so cool. She was my role model.
Like, did she help in any way, like for you trying to express yourself any like sexually or like learn? I'll go for, like, I know that for me, I never got like a talk here. Like, of course, you get like sex education and it's like very abstinent and like condoms and like very sanitized. And it's mostly like, not for like obviously your enjoyment, it's mostly like for procreation. But yeah, like her, it's like, oh, sex for fun and whatever. And it's like owning that sexuality. And so that's really nice.
Well, I had a religious upbringing, so sex in general was considered bad and only for married people. So
It's true.
I think her let's say authenticity, like her cool factor, right? Like broke through my prudish nature at the time,
Hmm.
where I really was like sex bad. So if you do something sexual, like as a sexy video, I look down at you. But
Hmm.
she won me over. So even in Dirty, and I'm like, oh, Christina, you should be wearing pants. I really still was like, but you're so cool. Like I really thought she was so cool. Her dancing was so cool, and like just how sexy she is. Like she reached me. I thought like the nose piercing was cool. Cut to me piercing my nose like years later, like all of that. Like it's good that I like realized that I shouldn't have braids, but I totally would. Like all these like things that left an impression on me since a young age.
Right. Right.
Watching her, right? I wanted to be like in a circus in a white dress, walking in the rain, like in The Boys Within. Was there rain in that video? I don't remember,
I don't
but
know if there
you
was
get
rain, but she was, yeah.
like the whole era. I think.
Yeah.
I know we're not talking about the fashion, but the energy that she was giving, right? Like
Yeah.
even though I had at the time, I did not like people who were sexual. she like broke through, where I was like, it's okay for her because it felt authentic. It felt correct.
Right. And I feel like even like a single we didn't talk about because it wasn't about on topic for this, maybe so much about being sexually liberated, but even the appearance of like a gay couple in Beautiful, it was kind of like um whereas previously, you know, like media or whatever, it paints them as like frivolous, like gay people or like relationships or even just kind of like the norm was just like, oh, it's a sassy gay or um,
It
maybe just like negative
still wasn't on
stereotypes.
TV really, right? Like still was considered
Right.
heavily.
I think all we had was like Will and Grace.
Yeah, and how many times did they kiss on that show? Like that took so long, like even to
Right.
show um
Right.
intimacy in a way. And she also like had like a man in a dress, right? Which
Oh, yes.
we're going back to these times of having that
Oh,
not
yeah.
be okay um, again. But
Yes. Scary
um,
times.
so it is. I know like celebrities get a lot of flack now when they're not really like part of the community and like they kind of center themselves into it to kind of get the credit for like standing up for
Mhm.
gay issues. But at the time, it was a very bold move on her side because it was not accepted at all, right? Like not being gay, but more like the idea of spreading that message was like being uh, fought against.
Yeah.
So it was kind
Yes.
of like very daring. You didn't see a lot of that imagery. Um,
Right.
and that was smart business wise because she's like, I know who will support me years later. The gays.
The
And she's,
gays. They've got fashion. They've got class. They've got money.
it was her
They'll
and
be my
Kathy Griffin.
friends.
It was her and Kathy Griffin going like, we know who to like court.
Yes.
And guess what? Now, Beyonce had Renaissance because she was like, oh, Christina was smart to stick with the gays. Learn that,
Yes.
Jessica. Oh my God. The straight route, you would lose.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to listen to the song and see how it sounds like. I wonder, is it country?
It's giving country vibes, at least from the
Oh, did you hear?
imagery.
Is it out?
I have not
Okay.
heard it, but like the people in that video we
Okay.
watched that were talking about it looked
Yeah.
like country producers. Like
Yeah.
you'll get Jessica in a way you haven't seen her before.
Well, good luck to Jessica.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we can thank you for being on this episode, but we also have to ask the audience, like, how has Christina helped you be sexually realized? Let us know in the comments.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yes, as always, don't forget to follow on all the social medias at Genie and a Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode where we further discuss Strip. Thank you for listening. Stay beautiful. Bye.